You are listening to the BlahCade Pinball Podcast, all speculation, all the time podcast version of the show. Hosted by me, Shut Your Trap, aka Chris Freebus, and as always, from halfway across the world, Jared Morgan.
Hello, hello. Oh,
yeah, we're excited about today because this is what we love to do. We love to put on our tinfoil hats and speculate the night away and figuring out what the heck is possibly going to go on. But as usual, before we get to that, stuff.
So what stuff has been happening?
Well, let's see. I'll quickly run through various stuff. Okay. Number one, yesterday I finally went and did a day of work for the first time in 7.5 months. Yeah, wow. I went a day of work. And it was one of those things where I've been very curious to see how my knee will hold up throughout the day. And I didn't restrict myself from doing anything. And even to top it off, we had to go up a staircase into this house, and the staircase had no railings, so I was really on sketchy ground. But
it wasn't like edged with razor blades like the other step was, so you'll be fine.
No, but I was just plain worried about falling over and having nothing to grab. But so long as I was very deliberate with my motions, and I was able to succeed and function, and I was on B camera, so I wasn't responsible for putting marks down, and this was an exceedingly low-budget movie, so they didn't even have money for a second slate, so I wasn't having a slate either. So I was basically there to give lenses, give filters, and help move camera, and that was about it. So
right, that's okay.
As far as days to try out the neon, that was a good choice.
Yeah, totally. A good introduction back to the working world.
Yes. And the other piece of news is I should be getting my new computer relatively soon.
What have you decided on? Another tower, or are you going to go with a laptop?
No. I'm going to do tower.
Yeah,
I'm not I don't like laptops.
you don't need a laptop. It's from what you're saying.
Well, I'm recording this podcast right now on a laptop, but I like things big. So my screen's big, and 15 and 17 inches ain't cutting it. So. And I don't know. I prefer the functions of a desktop, and I've got the laptop for when I need it, if I go out of town or whatever. But that's about the only time I use it.
Okay, right.
But yeah, the old funds came in from the state of Oregon for my time when I worked in there. So now I will be able to move forward on that. And then lastly. And this one's actually pinball related. I know we don't usually throw pinball related stuff in the stuff section, but
it won't be a movie. It's legit pinball. Right?
So I redid all the connectors finally on 8-Ball Deluxe.
Oh,
and we found the I think I mentioned it last time, there was a dangling cable, and that was why the lights weren't working. Which was about, I think it was around 10 or 12 lights that weren't working.
Because we didn't have ground, basically.
What's that?
Because they didn't actually have any ground.
No, because there was one cable, and it was only one cable, and this wasn't in the light board. This wasn't part of the lamp board. This was part of the MCU board.
All right.
So that's why what it was doing was it was powering up one particular transformer that was responsible for an entire bank of lights being controlled.
Right. Okay.
And so because that wire was dangling, it wasn't
getting any power.
It wasn't getting power. It wasn't getting any signal. So once that was up, I got the signal, and I still have 2 lights out. And so what I did for my testing, because I'm not very good with a multimeter, I own one, but I don't really know what the hell I'm doing with it.
No, me neither.
Well, this one doesn't even beep, which is even worse. So you have to look at the display to see. But I never know what to contact, what to peg it on. Anyway, so I made sure that I had light bulbs that worked, put them in the sockets, and then I went up to the lamp board and I identified which cable was going into that socket, because each cable has its own little thing, and then I unplugged it from the connector, which I was like, hey, isn't this convenient that I just redid all these, and swapped it with one that I knew. because I wanted to see if it was the cable that was bad, if it was the pin itself that was bad, that the connector is plugging into. So on one of the lights, it looks like I might have a bad pin, or at least I need to correct it somehow. And on the other one, I've either got a bad wire or I've got a bad socket. And I'm leaning toward the bad socket because
I'd say the socket
when I first purchased it. But
the sockets, I think when I was getting all the parts for Star Race, I was looking through the inventory list on that site, and they were going through the belly light sockets, and they said, oh yeah, these ones are poor quality sockets that were originally installed in the games. Use these ones instead. So I think there's a quality issue with some of the sockets, and I mean, really stands to reason, because these things are really only supposed to be around for 5 years. In machines, literally thrown away. They were designed to be disposable, so they weren't really designed to be operating still after 40 years of play. So yeah, I'd check your socket first. With regard to the pin issue, you might need to reflow solder, or as the Americans say, solder.
Solder, yeah. Well, because on the front side of the board where you see it, it doesn't look like it's got any issues, but I haven't popped off the board itself and looked on the back side where it very well might have an issue.
If it's one of those connectors that carries, if it's like a GI light, or if it's a light that's always a flasher. Yeah, okay. If it's on a lot, and it's incandescent bulbs, and you'll almost be guaranteed that it's a dry solder joint. So if you just reflow the solder onto each pin, you'll most likely fix the problem.
Yep.
The easiest option is to burnish it first, though, and get all the white powder off it.
Which there's none on it. Like I said, it's shiny pin. So I'm not.
It's a shiny pin. Oh, then it's probably a dry joint then.
Yeah. So I'll be calling my neighbor who's good with that kind of thing. And so after I did all the lights, and I was like, hey, you got to test the pin out, right? And so I've been messing around with the machine and playing it and playing it and playing it and getting really poor scores. And finally, I all of a sudden was having a game of games, and I was like, oh, I'm going to hit my best score on this machine, which currently sits at, I think, 3.9 million, somewhere around that vicinity.
All right.
And I had just a phenomenal ball 1, and ball 2 wasn't too shabby, and then ball 3 was going really dodgy. And all said and done, I finished at 3.2 million, and I was very disappointed. So I was like, oh, I could have had it. I could have had my top score. But anyway, it was good to be playing that again.
It would be good to actually start flipping the thing again. I'm at the point where I've got to do that clear coat on Star Race, and I just don't have time to go over there and finesse over the play field and make sure there's no crap on it. Because I know there's sticky stuff in places, and I'm so fearful that if I put any clear coat on now, it's going to look shit, and I don't want that.
That's why my firepower has sat the way it's sat for so long.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to, regardless of, I'm going to spend like a day looking over it and doing my best effort to see if there's any residual crud on the play field, and then just draw a line in the sand going, right, I'm just going to grab the devil by the balls and go for this now. And just whatever the consequences are, it's how it's going to look, basically. It is my first.
Yeah, you and me said that. It's our first pins. You got to learn on something.
You got to learn. So I'm happy to leave this one as a learning experience. It's still going to look pretty good.
Right.
And it's going to play much better than it did. So that's actually fine. And you'll be surprised, unless a collector comes to actually get this pin and really looks over it. Most of the people who just want a pinball machine, if I end up selling it, will be like, oh, it looks great. It flips well. It plays well. I'll take it. They won't care.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's just one of those things. You got to draw the line and go, hey, look, this will be fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do you say? Should we dive in now on some?
Yeah, let's each of us take 2 red pills and go down the rabbit hole.
Well, before we go down the speculation rabbit hole, we're going to go into the Arcuda rabbit hole.
Oh, yes.
Because a bunch of information has come out since last time we mentioned it.
Yeah, it has.
For which
that's good too. It's good that they're actually handing over all the goods as far as what's going on.
Well, the good news is that if I email them a question, they get right back to me with the answer. The bad news is that you guys on the forum are posting 5 billion questions, and I'm having to do all the work.
Yeah, which isn't ideal.
So I jokingly sent an email to them in one of my questions, asking questions. I was like, so I think I've made a few sales for you. Am I on payroll yet? And I just got crickets back from them.
Yeah.
Like, Arcuda, this is being very one-sided.
Yeah.
But so here's now there's about 3 different threads, I think, going on the forum regarding the Arcuda cabinet. And unfortunately, people either don't read the other threads than the one they're posting in, or they don't bother reading all of the thread that they are posting in, because a lot of the answers have been given in these. But that being said, there were some obvious questions. So the answer is, and this is, again, you have until June 30th to buy one of 3 packages that Arcuda is offering. The first one is $149, and what that is what they're calling the Arcuda key. So if you already own the tables on Steam, this unlocks the key that opens up cabinet mode, regardless of what cabinet that you have. And when I say cabinet mode, it's the cabinet view and the back glass. Now you have a choice of, if your cabinet setup is a 2-monitor setup, then you pick 2-monitor. If it's a 3-monitor setup, then you pick 3-monitor. And what we mean by 3-monitor is, or 3 and 2-monitor. 2-monitor means your back glass and DMD are part of the same monitor. Whereas a 3-monitor system, the DMD is a separate monitor to look like a DMD. Now, they do not function with actual DMD displays.
No.
So this is all purely
LCD panels.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then in terms of cabinet view, it's a locked image of the playfield. And the beautiful thing about this, and there was just video, Arcuda has been posting various videos to show all of this stuff off, but the one that they just posted today, and I linked it in my Twitter account, was comparison between if you were just running standard TPA and using
the mod.
No, not even using the mod, because the mod separates you can separate the DMD from the mod. No, this is just running it on a monitor that you've rotated into portrait mode and playing it that way, if you will. And when you did that, all those times that what do they call that when the camera moves on TPA? They were event camera.
Event cams, yeah.
Yeah. So anytime it would zoom in on a particular thing, or like even in launch mode, where it kind of change the angle so you could see the plunger, there was the 3 different choices. All that would be displayed on your cabinet.
Yeah.
The Arcuda mode, no event cameras whatsoever. It just is the playfield like you would have if you were playing a real pinball machine.
Yeah, right. Doesn't break the illusion, in other words.
Right, exactly. The other thing is that this will give you not just the back glass, but it's the animated back glass. So one of the things Arcuda had Farsight do, and you got to realize, Farsight is the one that's programming all the software, but they're doing it at the requests of Arcuda. And Arcuda was rather demanding and made all sorts of requests for which otherwise Farsight probably wouldn't have done in the normal game. And we were hoping that some of the things that Arcuda requested might find their way into the regular game, so long as it wasn't breaching the exclusivity of things that Arcuda wanted. But
I'd say it's fairly unlikely it's going to happen now.
Highly unlikely now. But so the animated back glass, what that does is, and I know the first one they did it on, I believe, was Bride of Pinbot. Bride of Pinbot, the back glass is the bride with her leg up in the air, and there's a score, bonus score, jackpot going up her leg.
Yes.
And as you're playing, each one will light up. You never knew that while playing the TPA version. No. If you're playing Whirlwind, you'll see the bank of 6 possibilities, you might say, for whatever when you sink the ball into the shed. What do they call that?
The
The
bunker.
bunker. Yeah, the bunker. Um, it's lit, and you can see. And the thing is in TPA they only show you the one that you're going for. They don't show you what the other ones are. But once
Yeah.
you've completed one, they stay lit, so you would know how many more that you had to go.
Yes.
If you're playing Cyclone, you'll be able to see what the current jackpot is set up, which you currently in TPA you're able to see. It's just off to the side, but this is all done up on the back glass, so it doesn't
got the
distract from
wheel
playfield.
when you do the mystery spin and stuff like that. Like that'll actually spin properly now.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's,
they
they've
redid the
done a
graphics.
nice
Like
job.
the one that everybody's familiar with is
Scared Stiff.
Scared Stiff. They redid that whole back glass, so it's actually high res.
Oh, it's really good. Jeez,
Yeah,
it looks good.
Yeah, so that's what you get with the $150 Arcuda key.
Now, seriously, if you've already got a cabinet and you already play this a lot on the cabinet, that really does to me seem like a pretty good investment.
Yes,
to really have an amazing experience on your cabinet.
And essentially, what you're missing out on, the only Williams tables, I believe, this is what people have said, that you're missing out on is Sorcerer and Bonsai Run. Which Bonsai Run would have been, I was very curious to know what they were going to do for that on the Arcuda cabinet. Because that was going to push the boundaries of what that was going to be able to do.
Essentially, I mean, they've had to do it like within the same view on TPA, but actually splitting that off to a new screen, that's interesting.
Because you would think that it would stay up on the screen permanently.
It would have to,
yeah. So
and it would be animated. So because I think the lights and stuff up there, like when you're playing the game normally on the lower playfield, there's still lights and stuff flashing up there, and animating to draw people into the game. So you know, it would be amazing to see that on a cabinet. Jeez, that would be
we're not going to.
No, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, no. So like I said, it's those two Williams tables. Apparently no Stern tables are in this pack because, and this does not surprise me, Stern didn't want to participate. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
You know,
and also,
if I could have Ghostbusters in a digital cabinet looking really, really fine, I don't think I need to go buy Ghostbusters.
For $8,000.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
So, thank you, please.
So none of those, and I don't know if that includes, it might not be any of the Data East tables that got relabeled as Stern either. The only one
like Last Action Hero and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, right. Although really, I think that Stern are probably looking at that. Certainly, at things like Ghostbusters and all the recent like Spike or like latest Sam tables, they're probably going, no, we don't want those on there. But I mean, Last Action Hero is old.
Right, Stern's not making any money off of it. They can't sell it anymore.
Well, it's not being produced. That's the thing. They're not actually doing vault editions of it. There's no way you can actually buy one of these new. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's those are some of the tables that you're missing. I think there's a Gottlieb or two that's also not included. I was thinking though, with the animated back glass, with the animated back glass, you know what I'd love to know how it looks is what does Black Hole look like, and
with the spinning,
but especially what does Xenon look like? Because Xenon
with the Infinity Glass,
yeah, that would. Does it have the active light show of the lights circling the back glass
with proper reflection?
I bet it. I don't. Well, I don't think. Yeah, I bet the light sequence is there. I don't know if the reflection.
I don't think the reflection would be there. I actually think that would take quite a lot of computing power to actually generate that.
There's actually a lot of people that have printed translights up of Xenon rather than try and find an actual back glass. So they still get the lights going, but they just don't get the infinity effect.
Yeah, because it's a beautiful black glass if you find one.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
It's the same with I think was it Space Invaders? It also had a similar thing.
There was a few that had it. The infinity glass. Yeah, Space Invaders definitely had it. I'm trying to think if Centaur had it.
Yes, I think it did actually. Anything with those chase lights on the outside, with the exception, of course, of Safecracker, which did not have infinity glass, but it did have the chase lights. So there you go.
But anyway, so that's $150 package. Then you have the other two remaining packages. The one is what they're calling the I'm blanking on what the actual name of it is, but it's basically the Arcuda unlock
with all tables, if you
for
haven't
all
got them
tables.
already.
Exactly.
So if this is
So
someone
that's
coming brand new to the hobby, they're going, geez, I want this cabinet thing now. I've never heard of BlahCade because I've been living under a rock for 7 years. I need this now. All right, I can just buy this thing and get them all. Cool.
And so that's the $500 package. And the big selling point, I guess, on this one is that it's also completely offline. So
yeah, that's a big deal.
So you're not going to have to worry about any updates ruining what you have. You're not going to have to worry about the tables disappearing if servers go down. You don't have to have the table plugged in online at all for any internet connection. It's just going to be a standalone. That's what I'm looking for, standalone. It's the Arcuda standalone package.
Now, that would suggest to me that if they're offering the standalone package as a thing, a product line, then I would expect that there's probably not going to be any updates for that one if it's standalone.
No, there's not.
So basically, you download this big dump, like 8 gig of software, which will be about the amount it will be with all the table files in, or 2 gig, something like that.
Right.
And then you put that onto your computer, and then that is it. It is a locked-in thing. Now, the interesting thing with the $149 option is that is only plugging into your entitlements, isn't it?
Correct.
So if there are any enhancements made to the tables that are then deployed to Steam, you would theoretically be able to get hold of those enhancements.
Yes.
But only to the cabinet mode view tables.
Correct.
So that's a little bit strange if you think about it, because if you just use your existing entitlements, then it kind of unlocks the cabinet view modes. But if you buy the $500 package, you are kind of only getting the cabinet view mode only. Is that correct? Is my understanding correct?
So.
Interesting. So it sounds to me like if I was doing it, I would buy all the tables separately through Steam and then get the unlock, because to me that feels like it's more flexible.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the advantage there is. I think that's also the more economical way of doing it. But
yes,
yeah. So I haven't quite heard for sure exactly why that, other than all I can think of is easier for them to market it that way, because that leads us to the third option, which is the $500 Arcuda cabinet unlock. And this we're going to talk a little bit about, because this is all the stuff that me and Jared have been dying to talk about, and Arcuda has just released video after video showing it all off. So here's the things that, and this is where a lot of questions have been popping up with the Arcuda cabinet unlock. It only works on the Arcuda cabinet. So if you plan on buying an Arcuda cabinet, this is what you're going to want. If you weren't planning on buying an Arcuda cabinet, then there's no need to have this, because it's not going to work on anything but that.
Yes.
Things that it unlocks. It unlocks the ability to plug in solenoids and shaker motors, because the software is written to respond exactly how a physical machine would respond when triggered.
Yeah, so you get basically all the knocking sounds you would if you had like all the flippers and solenoids in there.
Yeah, so the flipper knocks, you hear the pop bumper knocks, ramps flipping up. You can add as many of these solenoids in as you pretty much want. I mean, they have a whole bank that of slots that you're able to just plug one after one, another into.
Yeah, so you can go crazy. And the thing is that because you don't have all the overhead of all the playfield guts underneath there in the playfield, there's a lot of expansion space in the bottom of the cabinet.
Right.
So
the other thing that it opens up is the digital tilt. So previously it was all using a plumb bob, and that's all fine and dandy. I mean, that's what a regular machine uses, but you do have to level your machine.
Yes.
With a digital pinball machine, why would you possibly? You don't need to level it. It's not going to be affected by that, except for the plumb bob.
Yeah, well,
this is now a digital plumb bob, and so what it's reading is cabinet shaking side to side. It's not reading cabinet level.
That's
So
right.
you can technically have your machine on uneven ground, on a slope, doesn't matter, however you have it set. But it's going to respond to your physical shaking of the machine and affect the tilt that way. I don't know for a fact if Arcuda had Farsight adjust the tilt settings.
No, I don't know either.
It would be wonderful if they got rid of that setting where the ball's floating down the middle of the playfield and you do a shake and the ball physically moves, because everybody knows that does not happen on a real table.
No.
You need an object to make the ball move.
Yes. It almost position shifts the ball, doesn't it? Like it
Yeah.
it breaks the illusion real bad.
And I'll note that those two items, the solenoid board and the tilt board, those are proprietary to Arcuda.
Yeah.
And not available in, basically they had some unsavory types look at one of their previous cabinets and then copy everything that they've done and then put it into their own cabinets. And
yeah.
So this is done in such a manner that nobody can copy them, since it's all computer boards.
That's right.
Yeah. The other important reason, though, why they have the computer boards, and we'll get into this just a touch later, but I'll just mention it, it's for when you're playing a video game and not playing pinball.
Because it's just essentially a Steam box, what you've got. So while it does actually have the ability to unlock the special Arcuda cabinet mode, it's still running Steam. So you can play any Steam game on this thing on either of the screens. So on the back glass screen or on the vertical screen in the playfield. And I've seen footage of, I think it was like one of the driving games being played on that big screen. And it's surprisingly effective.
But there's more. There's more.
There is more.
There's more, but we'll get into that in a second. That's why I was teasing it, Jared, and then you didn't like the tease. You just wanted to jump right in.
I prefer to get it done.
Yeah. We'll come back around to that. Trust me. So the other things that are exclusive to the Arcuda mode, cabinet mode, Arcuda is using a touchscreen. So if you wanted to select tables by simply touching the screen, you can do that. You can do swipes. If you didn't feel like using the flipper buttons and felt like using your hands, all the zones that are you're used to on your mobile, that's what would be on the touch screen. So you don't even have to use actual flipper buttons if you didn't want to. Why you would do that when you have a cabinet with beautiful buttons, I have no idea, but who knows? I don't understand the younger generation either. So
I do actually have a use case for that. For people with disabilities, it's actually great because if you can't reach either side of the cabinet, you can actually just use one hand and rock it like that to actually use and set up your touch zones right. So you can actually play one-handed, essentially. It's great for accessibility.
I'll accept that. So there's that functionality. And then there's the absolute coolest feature ever, which is the Parallax 3D. So what they've
this thing far out.
What they've done is there's a slot in the cabinet for an Xbox Connect camera, which apparently people are now not happy about that choice, but I'll talk about that in a second also. So what this does, though, is it tracks your head movement. And based on your positioning of your head and where you're looking, that will change the perspective on the table. So you shift to the left and all the perspectives on the table shift to the left. Gives an insanely awesome look to the 3D. And it's not just you standing in one place and doing that. They showed the camera coming all the way around the side of the cabinet, and it played that way too. So it gives you a full range of head movement to be able to do that. And it is, at least in the video, stunning, because it also, and this is the difference between what like the NoX mod is, where they just did a new camera angle to get the flattened look and put that on a cabinet, and versus what Arcuda had Farsight do. There are 4 different camera angles. One of them is exactly that. It's basically what you'd get with an iPad. So it's that flat look in portrait mode. But the other modes do total depth on and simulate the sides of the cabinet. And you can so your camera modes are kind of varying how deep you're making the playfield look. And in 3D parallax, that's critical because it's really going to sell you the illusion that you're looking into the screen and not just at the surface of the screen.
Not onto the screen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just you think about that if you are an avid player. Like, have a think about how you play things like Terminator 2 when you're taking the super jackpot shot. Yeah. Think about what that would look like with that effect on. Think about what it would look like when you are lining up the shot on the next generation with the phaser cannons. Like, it would just make the experience incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we saw the video a couple months back, and we were just like, "Oh my god, that's so awesome! You did talk about that." Now the bad news is, and this has popped up in the threads regarding the Arcuda cabinet. Apparently, Xbox Kinect cameras are really hard to come by because they're not making them anymore.
No, really?
Yeah. So the price on eBay for these things has kind of jumped.
Oh dear.
So that, and Arcuda is not including it. You've got to come up with it on your own. You've got to find it on your own. Wow. So that's a bit of a bummer. And it would be like PlayStation has, PS4 has a camera, but I don't know if it had the same capabilities as the Kinect.
Well, the thing about the Kinect is it's actually open sourced. So the drivers and everything are open sourced.
So that's what it is.
Yeah, that's the reason why it's so popular, because you can do all sorts of amazing things with it. Like I've seen a number of like projects, like school projects and stuff like that. They're utilizing the technology. Yeah. Xbox were very smart and they made it open source.
So that's going to be the only hitch there. The other question that popped up was then about pricing of the cabinet itself. Arcuda hasn't actually announced what the price is yet. I emailed them about it. I asked, I guess what I've been suggesting to people is it's probably going to be between $7,000 and $9,000, which is basically what all the top end cabinets from other virtual pin cabinet makers are costing.
Yes.
Arcuda has said that they want it to come in at a much lower price than that. What they have right now in prototype and what they will be selling to as a coin-op machine to businesses is a steel cabinet version.
Yeah, and that's super expensive.
That's going to be your $9,000 machine.
That's like the LE. That's the LE of Stern.
It's going to be built like a tank. Yeah. In the US, they're going to be making a wood version. Yeah. So something for your home. And they also just said they've been approached by 2 different Chinese manufacturers about manufacturing this. So they're hoping the cost of this is going to go down.
Yeah.
And they said that I think they're going to announce the price of the cab like in the first week or so of June.
So you'd still be able to make a decision about whether you go full cabinet mode or just Steam cabinet mode.
Right.
Before the cutoff date. So if you are on the fence about this, just cool your jets just for that little bit longer, and we'll do what we can to actually get a closer idea when they're going to announce it. And if we can tell you closer to when that is, then we'll definitely let you guys know.
Yep. So what that made me think about, though, also is, and this is going to lead us into our full speculation mode here, but the forum has been rife with activity, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I asked Jared, I don't know if he bothered looking it up, but I'm curious to know what even our podcast numbers were for the last.
I didn't check, but I noticed that we got at least some likes on our Medium article, which is probably the first time it's ever happened.
Right.
So if people are liking the article, that suggests there's probably a lot of people looking at it.
Yeah. But with these threads, folks, first off, read the entire thread before you post your question, because odds are your question has already been answered.
Odds are, absolutely.
If your questions wasn't answered in that thread, all you have to do is look at the what's new threads, and you'll see that, hey, look at that. There's one that's all about Arcuda. There's one about Williams speculation. There's one about the official announcement. There's all sorts of brand new threads that are popping up about all of these related topics. And if you just read them, you'll find out something out. Yes.
You'll know things about things.
You will know things about things. So here we go. The deal is that Scientific Games is the holder of the Williams license. Scientific Games makes slot machines.
Oh, okay. Sorry, before you continue, I just had a look at the stats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did get a little spike in the episodes for the interview. Like, the highest spike we had was back when we had our CUDA video pinball news back in episode 126, and that was around 1,700 download requests.
Okay.
So that's not verified, but just download requests. So we spiked at episode 135 to nearly 2,400.
There you go.
And the qualified verified downloads were in the vicinity of, let's call it 1,600 for qualified versus 1,100 for the Arcuda video pinball news back in 126. So
yeah,
a big jump. A big jump.
Big jump. Apparently, you guys like it when we, actually have real things to talk about. And
yeah, it's funny that.
Amazing. So back to what we were saying here. Scientific Games, they do slot machines. They do millions upon, like, hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Billions a year. I mean,
quite literally billions. Yeah.
It's not a small company. And they acquired the Williams license a few years back. Prior to that, I don't know, because Farsight's been dealing with Williams license for a little over 10 years. They've not been dealing with Scientific Games for that long.
No.
I want to say it's like 3 years that Scientific has owned it, but I'm not 100% on that.
It feels right. I think it's because they were dealing with the like Roger Sharp and co.
Yeah.
That's where they were actually dealing through, and those people are no longer doing that. So I think it's been about 3 years. Yeah.
So the big fear is here you've got a company that has, I'm sure that they didn't only buy the Williams license. They bought a whole massive bunch of stuff, and the Williams license just happened to be in it.
It's like a fire sale. A little bit like, oh, and you get this as well.
Well, what I was going to say is it's more like, you went and you bought a storage locker that just had stuff in it, and you didn't know what was in it.
Yeah.
Other than what you saw right at the front, you went, that's the thing I want. And tucked into the back was the Williams license. And obviously it's it's not even really a thing because Williams tables aren't being manufactured. And so the only thing that was even generating money for this license was literally Pinball Arcade.
Yes.
So you get absorbed by a billion-dollar company, and a little pittance drop in the bucket is something that you just kind of go, eh. And that's what everybody's fear is, that Scientific just basically said, we don't even care. We don't even want to bother with this. It's the paperwork
alone.
It alone isn't worth it to us. So we're just going to go tuck it in the corner. It's going to rot and die. And unless we ourselves, put a storage locker up for sale and somebody swoops in and buys it, that's the end of it. You're never going to see Williams again.
Did I read somewhere, Chris, that there's like this upper tier or this like minimum ceiling level for license negotiation? It just doesn't make it viable.
Well, one of the Farsight employees had popped onto the forums, and they said if it's making less than $3 million, it costs more to discuss and manage it than what it brings in.
That's pretty crazy, isn't it? That's a lot of money.
Yeah, we never really, although we've sometimes speculated, we never know hard figure numbers. So I don't know how to verify or even quantify what that is. But if you just think about it in a logical sense, yes, that obviously makes sense. Here's the thing. That's no fun for us to think that this is the end.
No, we don't want it to be the end.
No, that's zero fun for us to discuss and think about. My thing that my initial processing of this information is, why would you leave money on the table? Even if it's nothing money to you, it's still money being left on the table. Now, I would completely understand if Scientific said, hey, you know what? We're done with negotiating. We don't want to go through these contracts. We don't want to hire our lawyers. We don't want to do any more of that. I understand if they did that. And then they also said, but feel free to sell what you have. And, it's kind of like they're getting a residual check that every now and then they check their mailbox. And they go, oh, hey, look, we got another $2.50. Cool.
Yeah.
We didn't even have to do anything for it. It's just there.
It's money for jam. Money for jam.
Right.
Yeah.
But the fact that they completely pull the license, yank, gone. No sales for you. That to me makes me say, I don't think we have seen the last of Williams and Bally Tables. Because they wouldn't just necessarily do that.
That's not really a shrewd business decision when you got money just rolling in. And,
money that you have to do literally nothing for. Why would you do that? So,
zero reason.
Yeah. So that got us thinking, okay, who possibly could be a buyer of this?
Yeah.
So we've kind of compiled a list. And we're going to start with who we think is the least likely and then work our way into most likely.
So when I was thinking about it, I don't know what you reckon, but I was thinking, well, let's look at the cases where, in this pinball resurgence, we've had new companies spring up that are actually rerunning these old Bally Williams tables. It's Chicago Gaming, I think, that's doing that.
Yeah, they're the ones that redid Medieval Madness. I believe they're Monster
Attack
Bash?
from Mars. Yeah, they did Attack from Mars remake. And yeah, you're right. They've got a couple of other ones in the pipe. One of them's been announced, and I think, according to the Head to Head Pinball podcast, there is another one as well in the works, but it hasn't been formalized yet. So these guys are actually taking those WMS assets and they're revising them into a brand new product line.
And in a way, you can even say Circus Maximus is doing the same because they're doing the
the Pinball Circus.
Yeah, Pinball Circus. Which is also a Williams title. My only thought, and this is when Jared suggested this to me, well, that's physical machines versus digital machines. They're not competing markets. And more to the point, the physical machine company can't possibly generate enough of these machines quick enough for that many titles that you could digitally.
No, that's right.
So for that reason, we put Chicago Gaming Company as the least likely to have come in and made a purchase. Although they obviously have the funds to buy the license and the means to produce these tables, it just doesn't really make sense that they would switch over to digital. Nor does it make sense that they would buy up the digital license just for the sake of blocking competition digitally.
That's right. And I think the interesting thing is that, and I may be a little bit skewed in this, but I seem to remember reading that in their acquisition of all the WMS molds and gameplay schematics and all that sort of stuff, they received the permission to produce the physical tables. And I don't know if there's any requirement for them to actually relicense. I think that's just part of their agreement. They have like carte blanche to actually reproduce all the tables physically that they want to. So,
which kind of makes sense also when you think about it, because nowhere on those tables is Williams mentioned.
That's right. They have to remove the Bally Williams label, which is the thing, as part of their contract. So, that is the interesting thing. Essentially, they've just got all the equipment and the molds and all the schematics. They can reproduce these. They just have to remove the branding. And the thing is that all these tables, they're not licensed. They're original properties of Bally Williams.
Right.
So that's the interesting thing there. I don't think they even need to negotiate when they need to do a new table. They can just do it.
I wonder if the artwork on it has even gone into public use.
Not sure if they've got if they've got all the IP for it. Maybe not.
Yeah,
licensing is really hard though, so it's just pure guesswork.
Yeah. So let's not guesswork about that. Like I said, they're our least popular option for what we think is going to be happening. that led us into thinking about, well, so let's look at companies that are actually making digital pinball.
Yeah.
And somebody that's done a really nice job on mobile. I know it's on iOS, and I don't know if it's on Android or not, but it's the company Color Monkey.
Yes, it is. They're on iOS as well and Android as well. And they're
right.
Yeah,
they made the table. What is it? Robo Robot or what?
Robobot, Revenge of the Robobot, and Lucha Libre.
Right. And if you've ever played those, physics on them are pretty good. The tables look really well. They have a nice flow. Clearly, this is a company that understands pinball.
Yeah, and, it is.
You would get the idea that they would be able to maybe handle reproducing.
It's possible. I mean, Color Monkey are the people who actually allowed Nina Innovations, who's the company that do a lot of the other sort of original design games on Android, to reuse their physics engine. Because Nina, was it Nina that did the physics and Color Monkey did the graphics? I think that might be it. But either way, those two companies work together on this as like a joint venture. So together, they could probably pull it off. It would be a big stretch for the studio because Color Monkey is a small studio.
And that's what I was going to say. I bet they're smaller than even Farsight.
They are, yeah. They're like 10 guys, I think.
Yeah, and to top it off, they've made a mobile game. They have not merged into making a PC game.
No, there's no Steam for those guys, is there?
No. And then they've produced those two tables, and that's it. They haven't gone beyond that.
That's right.
So that's one of those things where they might have the know-how, they might have the technical whiz bang, but would they honestly have what it would take to outbid Farsight? There's nothing about them that would suggest that they would be a better option.
No,
that they would do anything remarkable with the title that would warrant it. So yeah, that's why we put them there on the list. That led to thinking about Barnstorm Games. They're the ones that made Pro Pinball.
No, yeah.
Now, these guys have been around for, well, I don't know what Barnstorm has, but Pro Pinball has been around for a very long time.
Barnstorm hasn't. And to be honest, they had enough trouble getting out Pro Pinball. It was 5 years for them to actually release Pro Pinball. And there's various valid reasons why it happened, which I think they could use as lessons learned. Leading up to, if they were to go down this path of doing it fully 3D and not pre-rendered, which was the reason. But I don't think that Barnstorm would probably want to, again, do pinball after how badly they got stung.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I know a lot of people wish beyond all hope that they would be the company that could do it, because clearly they would make something that looks absolutely photorealistic.
But you'd be waiting 5 years per table.
Per table, yeah,
per table.
I mean,
so you'd be dead by the time. You'd literally be dead by the time all the tables got re-released.
There were 4 tables to convert. They've converted 1.
It took them 5 years,
and they had to do a Kickstarter to do it. Yes. So, I don't. Again, manpower, funds, finances to do it. Time frame to do it in just doesn't really make sense.
It just doesn't make sense. No, I agree. I don't think they have the chops to do it. They have the quality. Yeah, they have the quality mindset to do it, but it's just not a viable business proposition for them.
That made me think of then a new company called Formslangers. They're the ones that made Pinball Wicked, which is
that pirate theme table.
The pirate theme table.
Oh, that thing looks incredible.
And they're using the Unreal Engine 4 to do it. So here you've got somebody that jumped brand new on the scene, did a bang-up job on the way it looks. They're still tweaking it to this day, but the physics are pretty dang good. The flow of the table is good. The graphics on it
That's
can tax the
sensational.
mightiest of PCs.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the cost of it's like $20, isn't it? Well,
Yeah.
$20 in Australia.
Yeah.
I'm going, oh, do I get it for the Surface Book? Because
Yeah,
I
it's
think it would. I'd
I'm
have to turn
telling
everything down.
you, this is somebody that I think would be able to again produce a nice looking version because they have the Unreal Engine functioning on it. I think that
There's a
they
bit
would
of prior art there,
probably.
isn't there? So they
What's
could
that?
apply that. There's a bit of prior art there with the Unreal
Exactly.
4 engine. They've really spent a long time on the Pinball Wicked product, eh? Like it's been in development for about 2 years as they've been
Yeah.
perfecting it.
Yeah.
And
But you figure they're also doing game code. I mean, not game code, but rule sets, and they're playing with the physics. You're talking about something that was never a whitewood, so you're
they
still
don't have a reference model for it, so they
no,
have to kind of guess.
no. So if you all of a sudden gave them all the parts, of what a physical table is able to do, uh, would
I
they be
reckon they
able
could
to?
do it.
I reckon they might be able to, but again, I think they're a tiny studio,
Yes.
and they have not produced yet another table, which they've said that they have plans to, but it's been a while, and so that's a
Yeah.
lot on the plate, and to make
I don't
them
think they could. Don't think they could choke down the proverbial goat's leg like
right,
a Komodo dragon,
right.
the Komodo dragon of the WMS back catalog.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
so
would be a straight.
so there's that. This moves us into what would be seemingly plausible, and that is the company Ask Homework, or also known as Magic Pixel. I can never tell what they go by.
It's Magic Pixel now.
Magic
I don't
Pixel.
know. They've changed the name to Magic Pixel officially, I think.
These are the makers of the Zachariah pinball collection. So here you've got a company that took an entire collection of pinball, real-world pinball machines,
and digitized them.
Did visually a pretty good job on them. I mean,
incredible.
Yeah.
Like on mobile, this was like, wow, you can do this on mobile? This was 2 years ago.
Right.
And
they have produced it for Steam. So there's, they've got that aspect going for them. They produced the collection of tables that they did produce relatively quick. I mean, I think almost at a clip faster than what Farsight did.
Yeah, they did. I don't know how they managed it, but they did. And they basically did the classic case of like rapid iteration. They got the baseline set of tables out, and they were pretty rough when they first got out, and then they just started to tweak each one, and they just went through them and polished them up.
And
it's a good model. It worked.
They allowed you to do tweaking, like they had arcade mode for the tables, then they had pure simulation mode for the tables. They allowed you to set the rake of the play field, allowed you
to rubber bounce and stuff.
Exactly. So there was all manner of things that you could adjust. I don't think the UI was necessarily the greatest. It
wasn't awesome, but it certainly was better than Farsight's. I'll put it out there.
When I got into it, it was too much information. It didn't walk you through it nicely.
Yeah, that's a valid point. It was a bit like if you knew what you needed to tweak, then you could tweak it. But there are aspects of the Farsight interface that are exactly the same. Like I actually had a comment the other day. It was a blast from the past that somebody thanked me for the Android user guide that I wrote for fun. And they said, man, like, the game's great, but geez, that UI, it's not good. And he said, like, I didn't even know what some of these settings meant until I read your guide about what they meant. So, yeah, there's some problems there.
So what you got, I think that Magic Pixel could very well be a candidate for this, except for this. Again, what is different about them from Farsight? And more to the point, we really haven't heard anything from Magic Pixel in probably a year and a half.
Yeah, they haven't done a new thing. They've only been tweaking what they have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think they're necessarily innovating as much as they potentially need to carry on with something as big as the WMS. Like the task, really, it's not so much that WMS is big; it's just the task of taking on the license and then doing something with it that would actually represent the properties in the license really well.
And again, if you go back to the head of our conversation, it's why does Scientific Games want to take something that is a nothing that's sitting in the corner gathering dust? Why would you take it away from a company that is actively doing it and producing, and then give it to somebody else?
It's gathering dust, but it's pooping out dollars. So
right. And if you look at Magic Pixel, it's, well, but what are they doing? We don't know. So is that...
Are they one trick pony?
Are they one trick pony? Is that enough? What could they possibly be offering that would make Scientific Games go, oh, okay, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know. That leads us to who we think the number one candidate, if indeed
this is a thing that's going to continue, which we hope.
Which we hope. But the obvious choice, I mean, what we eventually come to is it's got to be Zen, right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
think about it, folks. Think about it. You've got a company that's producing tables, probably around nine tables a year, if not slightly more. You've got a company that is dealing with big licenses,
huge licenses.
Universal Pictures, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Fox, Bethesda. I mean, they've shown that they know how to handle a license.
Yeah, this isn't the first rodeo for the contract negotiation lawyers.
No. They also know how to produce on mobile. They know how to produce for Steam, and they know how to put out a completely polished product in the end. So all the requirements, you would think, boom, they're right there.
There's a lot of boxes ticked. For Zen
now,
over
the
the
box
others.
that a lot of people have immediately eliminated Zen for is, well, Zen doesn't do real world pinball. They're very successful at doing their own pinball. Why would they possibly want to step into a market, especially when all the cool tables have basically already been done? Because now they're going to do what? Are they going to, would they just...
D-grades.
Yeah, would they do all that's left? Would they try and recreate what Farsight's done? And if they've done that, well, why? Because it's already out there. So again,
why would you buy a table that you can already play, right?
Right. And my only thoughts on that are, have you played tournament mode in FX3?
Well, I have recently.
You have recently.
And oh boy, well, unfortunately, I haven't been able to play your tournament because all I have at the moment is Star Wars tables.
Right.
But when those do come around again, I've been playing just the other random tournament modes, and boy, it's just like the reason why you buy that game.
It's fun.
Incredible.
Yes.
Because playing pinball with people is fun.
Exactly. So there would be almost enough incentive for me to be like, you know what, I'll repurchase that table just because then I get to play it in tournament mode.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about
proper tournament mode too.
What's the price that they charge per table that they release? You know, it's about what, $4 or $5?
What for who?
Zen? For Zen. Yeah, with their
$2.99 typically.
Yeah, so in Australia that's about $3 or $4.
Okay.
And like Farsighted doing what each table, I usually don't.
Now.
Yeah, it's $5, isn't it? If you don't buy it in the pack.
Yeah.
So comparatively speaking, for the game experience, I'd probably rebuy.
Now, people say, but Zen's physics. Now, the people that I hear this from the most are people that haven't touched Zen in quite a while.
Yes.
Yes. If you go back to the initial, the initial first time that you could play Tesla, it did feel like it was the world's heaviest pinball, and that the rubber was made of concrete.
Yes, it really did.
Now, compare that to how Tesla plays today. Tesla is much bouncier. The ball isn't nearly as leaden. They've tweaked, and as we mentioned a few podcasts ago, that we think basically with the start of the Aliens pack, they've gotten a handle on what pinball should feel like. And
Yes.
if they put their minds to it to do real simulated what it actually feels like to play the machine, I have no doubt they'd be able to tune one of these tables to play just like it.
Oh yeah. I mean, their physics engine seems to be adaptable enough that they can go back and remap all the other tables. So
yeah,
they could pretty easily put a new map in place for the real tables. I don't really see any problem with that at all.
Also, if they've been very successful with all of these tables that they've been making on their own, maybe they're expanding. Maybe they have enough that they're like, hey, we can make our studio even bigger and we can produce our own design tables and we can do a sub version of doing these recreations. It's not like this is going to become their sole business model. They've already got a very well working business model going on. It would just be a matter of we're going to hire some new people and expand and be even larger.
Yeah, and just do some more.
Yeah,
because there's this new opportunity that's now become available. Let's seize that opportunity.
The question, though, again comes down to what would they have to do to get Scientific Games' attention to do that? Why would Scientific just flip the bird to Farsight to do this? That's the big mystery.
Yeah.
And it's a mystery that, again, we're playing the speculation game because we want to believe that there's going to be more Williams. But there might be the no answer. There might clearly be, they're done with it. They don't want to deal with it anymore. They don't want to deal with signing contracts every couple of years. They're just like, we're out.
We own it, but we're going to let it rot because it's not commercially viable. So
exactly. And if you go to Scientific Games, if you go to Scientific Games website, you'll notice that one of the pinball machines they're advertising right now, boy, it's got Monster Bash art all over it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Pokies.
Yeah. So
interesting.
They are using assets.
The assets.
So that's why it very well could be completely off the table. We don't know. But I do think the prospect of somebody like Zen getting a hold of it is exciting just because it would be all the functionality of FX3 applied to it, which
just imagine like all the things that we've been seeing, well, that Steam players in Pinball Arcade have been seeing for a couple of years now, like that head-to-head mode and stuff like that, that's just rotted on the vine.
Yeah.
All these things that we were like going, if they just did this, it would actually start to pick up, you know.
Well, you'd finally be able to, assuming that, and again, here's talk about questions. Would Zen emulate? Would Zen crack the code themselves? Would they hand script everything? I mean, clearly they know how to script because they can do their own table. But what would they do with this? Because in order to apply all the things that happen to in FX3, you've got to have access to the code. That was always the thing that Farsight said, that they're essentially running a program on top of a program. So when you were doing wizard modes or standard goals, not wizard modes, but wizard goals and standard goals, those were queued off of audio cues or certain sequences that register within the ROM, right? That would then trigger the achievement to pop up. That's why sometimes
sounds as well.
What's that?
Sounds. Yeah, the sound hooks as well.
Yeah,
that's
why sometimes they wouldn't register, because sometimes there was this wash of sound that would disguise itself, if you will, from the program recognizing that it was there.
Yep.
And that's why we can't adjust things within the game. Why you're limited to only what the game was able to do. But with Zen, if you put it in tournament mode, well, now you can select how many balls, how many tries, how many, you're going to get pop-up scores for when a friend has, you're beating a friend's score. It's all internally and running. So that's there's a whole nother mystery is Zen doesn't do emulation. So
no,
maybe they're not somebody that would be wanting to get a hold of this.
Yeah. Because I mean, we saw how hard it was for Farsight to emulate the rules accurately back in the Pinball Hall of Fame days. Like there were
that's when they were purely scripting. They weren't emulating. They were just scripting
at all.
Yeah.
So we know it's tricky, but it depends on. I think from a technical standpoint, it sounds like Zen, the way that they do their game engine, their rules engine, it sounds like it's very modular. So I would think that if they could work out, like, I think if they were cheeky, what they would do is they go through all the Farsight rule sheets that are in each game and basically extract the logic out and then turn it from rule sheets into pseudocode and then implement that in their rule sheets. I mean, really,
boy,
you know,
that would be cheeky.
But you think about it, like it's all laid out. It's actually all laid out there.
Well, again, we could talk about a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole. We could go down a rabbit hole with Zen, but why bother doing that now? Because there's no point wasting the breath until we hear any further news, if we hear any further news. My gut feeling is we're not going to hear anything until after June 30th from Scientific or anybody else.
Or anyone.
That's what's going on. So that's why we're pushing so hard that this whole Arcuda business, because this might very well, I mean, from what we've seen, this is it. This is your last chance. So certainly we want to make sure that everybody
play it on, for the ability to play it within Farsight's apps. You can't waste time. And the thing is that because there's no indication either way about what may or may not happen, you've got to basically play to the facts. And the facts are that if you don't have the games and you take the risk, after June 30, you go, well, someone's surely going to pick this license up, theoretically, maybe, possibly, and you take that risk. So you've got to live with that decision forever. So I don't know. It might be time. Certainly wait until maybe Arcuda has released the cabinet pricing. And because you'll still have time, according to what the deal was there. Because didn't Bobby say that? Wasn't there a point in the podcast where he said, some platforms, depending on how long it takes for them to actually
it might be
June
28th.
Yeah. So we're not talking about weeks. Like they're not going to pull it like 2 or 3 weeks before. It'll be like maybe a week maximum before that June 30 date, depending on your platform.
I just realized I never circled back to the Arcuda arcade stuff like I promised, but I think it's a perfect point to circle back into that, which is, apart from being able to play Steam games, they are going to allow you to play call it MAME style classic arcade games in their true form, meaning if it was a vertical screen game,
shoot 'em up or shmup.
You're gonna be playing it on the play field. If it was a horizontal game, then you're gonna be playing it on the back glass. The whole lock bar mechanism comes off, and in its place you can put an actual joystick,
full control panel.
Full control panel, just like you would get in the arcade.
It's a two-player. It's a two-player full control panel, from what I remember. And this thing is ready to go.
And this is what Arcuda does. What they've been doing for years. They make arcade cabinet parts.
They do.
So this is their bread and butter. So it's one of those things that, in addition to being able to play pinball, you'll be able to play any of your Steam games, and you'll be able to have actual real arcade style screen images going on too. Interfaces,
natively supported within the Arcuda pinball arcade platform.
And though Arcuda cannot say so because they're not licensed to say so, they've had no issues showing video of it, which is it does run Zen in cabinet mode beautifully.
So you can unlock, because in Zen FX3 at the moment, you can go and ask for a license key for cabinet mode. If you haven't already poked around, which I'm sure the cabinet owners would have done so already. And look, it looks good. Like it, without any modification at all, it is really good, well implemented cabinet support. So, I mean, there's a whole nother world of opportunities that you can use for strictly on pinball, I'm sure that I don't know what Zacharia's support for cabinet mode is.
I don't know.
But there's a lot of titles that you can put that really would utilize that vertical screen.
Yeah. The only thing that is exclusive to the Pinball Arcade version of games is the solenoid activation.
Yes.
The Zen doesn't have that capability for Arcuda. I seem to recall that they had that capability for VP cabs.
Oh, did they? Did they have interface?
Because that was Zen was officially licensed by VP cabs. So
I had to go back and have a look at Shark Tank.
Yeah, that's it.
I've heard a lot from VP cabs though.
No, but I did just hear from somebody that actually owns one of their they own the Vertigo cabinet, and they were asking about all this Arcuda stuff. So I was like, dude, tell me about your cabinet.
Yeah, awesome. Like the first one in the wild, eh?
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's that thing. So anyway, that's it for our speculation, folks.
Yeah.
It's
a lot
fun
to chew over.
Yeah, it's fun for us to think about. It's obviously what we thought about when we first heard this news, and didn't want to think about it being the end. It's much more fun to think there's a possible future.
A light at the end of the tunnel.
It's one of those things where it's look at it logically. Try and figure out what would possibly be the most likely outcome. And I've talked to various people, and we all kind of come to the same conclusion that the only game in town right now that would be able to handle this kind of a license and handle it in such a manner that they would secure the license for themselves would be Zen. But
it really is yeah, it's
all a bunch of big ifs though, hinging on did Scientific actually sell relicense? Yeah, relicense to somebody. So
yeah, we don't know.
If you're part of Scientific and feel like spilling the guts,
you just come on, reach out to us.
Reach out. Yeah. You can do that by emailing us at blahcade@gmail.com. You can send us a private Twitter message at BlahCade or at Shut Your Trap or at Jared Morgs. I've been private messaged on Twitter before for various aspects that people didn't want public. So that hey, feel free, Scientific.
Yeah. Well, both Chris and I aren't strangers to NDAs, so
right.
Yeah, we know how it works. So yeah.
So anyway, hey, if you're new to the podcast after having listened based off the spike numbers that Jared mentioned, hey, we're hoping you're listening this week, and we enjoy your feedback, and we're appreciative of you listening to us at all.
Yeah. And also a quick shout out. I won't name names, but we did actually receive some donations from the last episode.
That is correct.
For those people who did donate, we won't tell anyone who you are, but thank you very much for sending a little bit of cash our way. It makes a huge difference.
Yep, it keeps the lights on for us being able to host.
Yes, and renew our domains.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The coffees were getting a bit low there. So yeah, it came at just the right time. So thank you again.
All right. Well, with that, we shall bid adieu until next time, which I think we'll have some more things to talk about next week, Jared. I'm pretty positive on that. We'll just kind of figure out where we want to go with it. Depends on what the discussions are on the forums, because believe me, this last week of forum discussions
it's been hot.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of things that were just like, oh wait, I want to talk about that. No, we can't talk about that yet. So
yeah. We got to trickle out the information when we can trickle out the information.
Right. Otherwise, you wind up with 4 podcasts in a row where we're talking about nothing. All right.
Yeah.
Like we said, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you all again next week on the BlahCade Pinball Podcast. Bye-bye.
Sayonara.